You know, there's this debate that happens in pretty much every kitchen. When you're reaching for that spoonful of sweetness, you probably think, I'll go for the brown sugar, it's healthier. But is it really? Well, it's time to get the unsweetened truth.
So let's just dive right into it. This is a question that so many of us ask, right? We're all just trying to make slightly better choices for ourselves. But the answer to this one, well, it might actually surprise you.
Okay, here's how we're going to break it all down. We're going to start by busting that health halo myth. Then we'll trace sugar's journey all the way from the plant to your pantry. We'll put the nutrition facts head to head, see how it really affects our blood sugar, and then we'll get to the final verdict and talk about some smarter ways to sweeten things up.
All right, first things first, let's talk about reputation. Brown sugar has this amazing PR team, you know? It's got what we call a health halo. We see that earthy color and we just automatically assume it's more natural and better for us.
And this idea is absolutely everywhere, in coffee shops, in recipes, you name it. But as this quote from Healthline points out, just because something is popular doesn't make it true. They come from the same source. So let's see what the science actually has to say about it. Now, this is where things get really interesting. How are these two sugars actually made? You might think they have totally different origin stories, but they're basically twins separated at birth. So check this out. Both sugars start their journey as juice from either sugarcane or sugar beets. That juice gets heated up and becomes this dark, rich syrup you've probably heard of, molasses. Then the magic happens. They spin this mixture super fast in a centrifuge, which separates the pure white sugar crystals from the molasses. For white sugar, they just keep washing and filtering until every last trace of that molasses is gone.
And here it is. This is the big reveal. The brown sugar you're buying at the store, it's almost always not some raw, unrefined product. It's literally just that same refined white sugar with a little bit of the molasses added back in. That's what gives it the color and that slightly different caramelly flavor. Mind-blowing, right?
So if brown sugar is basically just white sugar in a costume, what does that mean when we look at the actual nutritional info? Let's get into the nitty-gritty. The numbers don't lie.
First up, calories. It's pretty much a dead heat. We're talking 17 calories in a teaspoon of brown sugar versus 16 in white sugar. That one single calorie difference, it's completely meaningless in the grand scheme of your diet.
But what about the minerals, I hear you say? This is the main argument for brown sugar. And yeah, technically, because of that little bit of molasses, it does have more calcium, iron, and potassium. But, and this is a huge but, look at those amounts. They're so incredibly tiny that they make absolutely no real difference to your health. You can't eat enough brown sugar for those minerals to matter. And this quote just nails it. To get any meaningful antioxidant boost, you'd have to eat a ridiculous, impossible amount of molasses or brown sugar. You are so much better off just eating a small handful of berries. It's not even a competition.
Okay, so calories are a wash, and the minerals don't really count. So let's talk about what really matters for our metabolic health. What do these sugars do to our blood sugar levels?
To figure that out, we use something called the Glycemic Index, or GI. It's basically a 0 to 100 scale that tells you how fast a food is going to jack up your blood sugar. The higher the number, the faster the spike, and that's generally what you want to avoid.
And here is the final nail in the coffin. Both of these sugars have a high glycemic index. They both cause a big, fast spike. White sugar sits around a 65, but brown sugar, it can actually be higher, around 71. So for controlling your blood sugar, brown sugar has zero advantage. In fact, it might even be a little bit worse.
All right, we've looked at how they're made, we've compared the nutrition labels, we've seen the impact on blood sugar. So after all that, what's the final verdict in this sweet showdown?
The verdict is in, and it's crystal clear. Brown sugar offers no, and I mean zero, meaningful health benefits over white sugar. The idea that it's a healthier option is plain and simple a myth. Your body sees them as pretty much the exact same thing.
You see, the real enemy was never the color of the sugar. It's the sheer amount of added sugar that we're all eating. Too much of any kind of sugar is linked to some really serious stuff. Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, the list goes on. The goal isn't to switch from white to brown, it's to cut back on both.
And just to give you some perspective on what that looks like, the American Heart Association says women should aim for no more than 6 teaspoons of added sugar a day. For men, it's 9. Think about how quickly that can add up in drinks, sauces, and snacks. It's a lot less than you'd think.
So if we know that picking brown over white is pretty much pointless for our health, what are the other options out there when you just want a little something sweet?
Well, here's a super quick guide. You've got things like honey and maple syrup, which do have calories and will affect your blood sugar, so you got to use them sparingly. Then you have non-nutritive sweeteners like stevia and monk fruit, which have no calories and no blood sugar impact. Same goes for sugar alcohols like erythritol. The only thing is, the research on the long-term effects of some of these is still developing. So the real takeaway here is that it's not about the color, it's about the quantity. Look, if you prefer the taste of brown sugar in your coffee, go for it. Just don't trick yourself into thinking it's the healthy choice. The real power is in being aware of your total sugar intake every single day. So maybe the real question is, what's one small change you can make starting today? Thanks for tuning in.